Welcome in, everyone. Today we are diving into Jewels of Faith
Fair.
by Prinso Awakaga.
Okay.
This book is really brimming with inspiring stories about overcoming obstacles through faith.
Yeah.
But there's this recurring theme that I found really fascinating, and it's this whole idea of finding fruitfulness in barrenness.
Yeah.
It's about those times when things seem hopeless,
Right.
but God steps in and just makes something incredible happen.
Yeah. Precisely. It's about recognizing that even in those seasons of waiting, of perceived emptiness, God is working in ways that we may not immediately see or understand.
Yes, and to really kind of dig into this idea, we are going to explore the lives of three biblical women, Sarah, Rebecca, and Rachel. Now, you might be thinking, okay, those are pretty ancient stories. What do they have to do with me?
Right.
But trust me, their experiences, while thousands of years old, offer some really, really powerful insights into how we can navigate those barren seasons in our own lives.
Absolutely. Because haven't we all faced those times when a promise felt distant?
Oh, yes.
A dream seemed impossible or a longing went unfulfilled.
Yes.
These women's stories remind us that we're not alone in those feelings and that even in the midst of waiting, God's faithfulness remains.
It's so true. So let's start with Sarah.
Okay.
We first meet her living in Ur, a city that was essentially polytheism central.
Right.
They had gods for everything. But this environment really presented a huge challenge for Sarah and her husband Abraham.
Right.
Because they were devoted to the one true God.
Right. And that's such a vital point.
Yes.
It's easy to gloss over that detail, but imagine the internal struggle Sarah might have faced.
Oh, yeah.
It's one thing to believe in God. It's another to live out that faith when you're surrounded by a culture that not only embraces different gods, but celebrates them.
Totally. It makes you think about the subtle pressures we might face today.
Right.
To conform to certain ideals or beliefs, even if they clash with our own values.
Right.
It takes courage to stand firm in your convictions, especially when you feel like you're swimming against the tide.
And that's exactly what Sarah and Abraham did.
Yes, they did.
They were called by God to leave their comfort zone and everything familiar and journey to a new land.
Wow.
Canaan, a land God promised to give them.
And here's where things get really interesting. God promises them something extraordinary.
Okay.
To become a great nation, a people as numerous as the stars.
Wow.
But there's a catch. Sarah is barren.
And this is where the concept of a covenant becomes so crucial.
Okay.
This wasn't just a casual promise God made. It was a binding, unbreakable commitment, a covenant sealed with an oath.
Wow.
By entering into this covenant with Abraham, God was essentially staking his own reputation on fulfilling his promise.
Wow.
Even if it seemed humanly impossible.
It's like their entire future, their legacy hinged on a promise that, from a human perspective, seemed destined to fail.
Exactly. And yet Sarah and Abraham chose to trust God's word over their own understanding, over their circumstances, over their doubts and fears.
Talk about a leap of faith.
Right.
They left behind everything they knew, their families, their culture, to embrace a future that felt completely uncertain.
Right.
They were essentially starting from scratch, relying solely on the promise of a God they couldn't see.